and welcome to the Art of Selling Online Courses. The goal of this podcast is to share winning strategies and secret hacks from top performers in the online course industry. My name is John Ainsworth, and my guest today is Jeff Sauer. Now, Jeff is the founder of Data Driven You. He's a business coach, a blogger, a lecturer, and a proud Minnesotan. We are big fans because he's a big believer in data-driven marketing. Obviously, it's in the name of his business and ours, which is awesome. He's been featured in lots of industry publications and best of lists. He's had 49,000 digital marketers enrolled in his digital marketing certification programs. He's delivered over 100 keynote presentations and workshops in 20 countries. His personal ambition is to share his knowledge and passion around online marketing with 1 million students through his online programs. And kind of a fun thing, Jeff, I don't think you know this, he's kind of famous in this space. I know this because I had someone the other day see that we work with Jeff and go, you're working with Data Driven You, you guys must be legit. And so I was like, oh, look at Jeff, eh? So before we start learning from Jeff, I want to mention our sponsor. Today's sponsor is my company, Data Driven Marketing. And what we do is we help online course creators to increase their revenue 20 to 100% through strategic funnel optimization. So we help you convert more visitors into leads, leads into sales, and sales to higher revenue. We do that through email marketing, upsells, webinars, all kinds of clever tactics like that. So go to datadrivenmarketing.co/calculator to find out how much more you could be making from your online courses with your existing traffic and email list. Now, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, John.
Now, I've given kind of an intro for everybody about a little bit of background about what you guys do, but could you fill everybody in on what your courses are about and who your audience is?
Yeah, sure. So I started out in an agency background, and I had an agency for 15 years. We just sold it a couple of weeks ago. So
Nice.
That's pretty cool milestone for us. And while I was in the agency world, I realized that nobody that I was trying to hire as we were growing like crazy, I couldn't find anybody with any digital marketing skills. And I figured instead of complaining about it, I decided to start teaching it. And I did that low key in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and eventually went to online when I became a digital nomad. And I've been doing that ever since. And so I basically just taught the skills that I wish people would have had when I was hiring at my agency. And it was skills around the Google suite of tools. And we did a lot of work in Google Ads, or AdWords as it was called at the time, Google Analytics, basically the whole Google suite of marketing tools. And from there, I basically just taught these classes about how to use them, how to get the most out of it, and how to not trust the major platform providers. And then I did it again. I've done it with Facebook ads as a platform. I've done it with guest instructors around LinkedIn outreach. We've done a lot of programs around how to build an agency like I did, how to get new customers, how to be a better business owner. And so we sort of started off just doing a bunch of one-off courses about what I was interested in and what I noticed the marketplace didn't have. And from there, it's grew organically into being anything around the intersection between data and marketing. So we cover that. And what makes us different and what our secret sauce is that this stuff doesn't have to be complex. A lot of people will make it complex. Generally, when you talk to somebody who's into data, they'll make it sound really, really complicated. And sometimes it is, but generally data is not supposed to be the feature. It's more the appetizer, right? It's more the amuse-bouche. And so, yeah, it makes everything better, and it makes the whole meal, it ties it together, but it's also something that shouldn't be overwhelming. It's something that supports everything else. It makes everything better. And so that's what we focused on here at Data Driven You. And yeah, and the last thing I'd say about our programs is we have our Insiders program where you can take all of our courses that we have around learning skills, and you can get it in one low monthly fee. And then not only that, but we also do continuing education. So like when Apple released iOS 14.5 and sort of broke Facebook ads for people, we did several workshops on that and what it means for you and how you can prepare. When Google just released Google Analytics 4 without telling anybody about it, we did several workshops and an entire course on how to navigate that new item. So we're taking things from the headlines and reacting to them in our unique way as to say, is this a big deal or not? And then what can you do to take advantage of this?
Nice. And you mentioned that you were trying to teach people who you wanted, so they'd have the skills that you wanted them to have. Who tends to be your clients? Is it the agencies for their staff? Is it the staff in agencies? Is it freelancers? Is it a mixture of all of those?
Yeah, we get a mixture of them all, which will come up later on as to why it can be difficult to market, because I always say that our customer base is like a peace sign. You get thirds. It's a third agency marketers, a third freelancers and agency owners, and then a third in-house marketers,
Right.
Generally speaking, give or take.
Gotcha.
And so that is a challenge because everybody has different types of objectives and different things you want to do. So when I talk to people who are in-house, our strategic programs are what they want. They don't want to know how to do it. They want to know how to coordinate it and to get the most out of their vendors. When we talk about the really tactical programs, it's the ones who are the providers and the employees who want to be known as a specialist or have a certain skill that really are attracted to it. And so that can be a challenge as far as marketing messages go and also segmentation.
And how have you handled that from a course creation point of view? Have you got certain courses that this is aimed at people who are in-house, who are strategic, and this one's aimed at people who are in the details of it all? Or are there parts of each that are for each, or how does that work?
Yeah, right now it's parts of each. So I say, hey, if you're at an agency, this is why this might be useful. Or, it's more anecdotal and more around field experience. Hey, this is really important if you're in this role or that role. So you have to watch to get the nuance to it. However, we are starting to segment more, and we are starting to really define who this is for within our programs. The good news is that everybody can benefit from the knowledge. It's just whether that knowledge is applied directly to your job or if it's indirectly, as in you now can speak the language. You can talk the talk, walk the walk, which I've taught in person in the Twin Cities and had over 2,000 people come through and looked them in the eyes, talked to them face to face and said, what are you looking for? And the majority of people are not necessarily wanting to be the foremost expert in something. They want to know how they can bend that level of expertise or that platform to meet the objectives in their company. And so I think that is a pretty big focus area. And that's where I want to make sure that we represent that to people.
I ask about this in particular because I think a lot of the people listening to this, I see it very often that people are struggling with really deciding on who is it they're focusing on and understanding their customer avatar. One of the things we do first with people in our group coaching program is we're going to do a survey, we're going to understand the audience, we're going to decide who that customer avatar is and make sure that we know who it is that we're talking to. And then when you've got 3 different customer avatars, okay, they're not miles apart, but they're definitely distinct. That definitely sounds like it makes it harder. How do you work on with that when you're doing the copywriting for a sales page, for example?
Yeah, I think you might ask this later on, how frequently we promote and what type of promotions we do. We have our base list of emails, and then we've segmented down, and we did a segmentation survey for a lot of our lead gen. So if they're coming in from our site on our lead gen, we segment them based on the question, which is like, what is your role in marketing? So we ask them what their role is when we capture the leads. And not only that, but also a lot of times if we're doing co-marketing or marketing somewhere else where joint ventures or whatever you want to call it, partnerships, usually the product that they select self-selects them. So we have an inference as to what they're interested in based on the type of lead they came in from. So if they're interested in Google Analytics, most likely we can lump them into a certain segment. If they're interested in our business courses or things that are around developing a business, then we can put them into that area. And so that's how we are able to segment. It's definitely not 100%. It's never 100%. Even if you were doing the ask method and you had every form on your whole website, every lead that came through ask method, that's only a snapshot in time from when they signed up, right? It's never completely accurate, but it at least gives you a directional area. And then anybody we miss, we give them the ability to opt into a certain promotion we're running, either through a broadcast email or through our monthly newsletter. And so we make sure that they at least know that something's coming down the pike. If they weren't in that segment, they get 1 or 2 opportunities to get put into the launch list.
This is awesome. And I've seen Kyle planning out, right, we're going to send this email. Kyle is Jeff's copywriter. This email is going to go to this segment and it's going to go to this segment, that kind of thing before. And it's fantastic. I just want to warn most people listening to this, this is more advanced stuff than most people are ready for. So this is more like seeing some of the ninja shit that Jeff rather than necessarily, right, let's go and start segmenting everything right away, because most people haven't got some of the fundamental stuff, and some of this can distract from that opportunity of getting the
Yeah.
basics first.
Although I will say that everybody segment out buyers and non-buyers at the very least. You don't have to get down to a product level, but at least whether they're a customer or not. Because if you do general marketing messages to your customers, you need to talk to them differently.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done some tests and we found that previous buyers were about 22 times more likely to buy than non-buyers. But yeah, if you end up by mistake marketing something to someone who's already bought it for less than they paid for it, that's not the ideal situation to be in. So would you give everyone some kind of idea of the scale of your course business?
Sure. Yeah, last year we were mid six figures in revenue. We grow by around 20% a year, which is nice. I always want it to be bigger than that. And, hoping this year, not hoping, but planning this year to hit over 7 figures.
Nice. Cool. And how do you drive most of the traffic to the site? Is it mostly through Google, through ads, through partnerships? Because you mentioned partnerships before as well.
Yeah. So I will be honest with you. The biggest lead source we've had in the past was a partnership. And that partnership was with AppSumo. Many people who are in my sphere of influence came to me from buying one of our courses on AppSumo. And so I'm not going to hide behind that, even though I'd like to say that we did it in other ways. Yeah, our biggest source of everything initially, at the very least, came from AppSumo. Now, we haven't done an AppSumo deal since 2017. And so there's been 4 years since we've had maybe it was 2018, but 3 or 4 years since we've actually done a deal. And we don't have any plans to put anything out there as a paid promo on AppSumo anymore. So that hasn't been as much of a source anymore. It might, it's somewhat of a lead source, but since then we realized that when you start under the context of giving somebody a deal, people expect everything to be a deal. And so we've had to navigate that with pricing and product placement and so on to figure out the exact place to be. And so AppSumo has been great to us. We have some freebies on there right now. So if you wanted to just get something, if you wanted to see how data-driven works, there's several products on there that are freebies that you can just download. But with the paid promotion, we've stepped away from that, at least as of now, and are really going to lead generation and then using our own programs and webinars and so on to turn them into paid customers. And so that we have about 50 to 60,000 people a month coming in from Google search to our blog. We've really invested heavily in content in the last few months that's starting to already see more dividends. We have run ads. I mean, I have programs or courses on ads. So obviously I like to eat my own dog food and use that as examples for what's working. We do lead gen ads and so on and so forth. And so there's a bunch of different ways that people come in, but primarily it is the AppSumo partnership and then just search traffic that feeds our email list.
Cool. And what kind of size email list do you guys have?
So the vanity number would be about 75,000 now, but I made the decision to cut out our worst performers. And so we cut out about 15,000 plus people from our list. So we're at about 50K quality subscribers. According to ConvertKit there, our average value or our average subscribers are 4.3 out of 5. So we have very high quality subscribers.
Nice. Cool. And then what kind of promotion are you guys sending out? I feel funny sometimes with these questions because I'm like, well, I know because I know what promotions going out, but tell everybody about how often are you sending promotions out to your email list? And yeah, let's start with that. How often are you sending out promotions?
Yeah. So it's funny. You and I talked a year ago, almost exactly, for your online course summit. And I think my talk was how to run it like a real business, right? And that is something that I stress upon, is that I come from a background that had a real financial plan and forecasting and budgets to actuals and stuff like that. So I incorporate that a lot into this business as well. And so generally speaking, we project out what we're going to try to do for the year, and then we make adjustments, so on and so forth. But if you don't email, you don't make any money in the business of online courses. You can't just take time off, and funnels are nice and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, promotions are what pay the bills and what brings in the bacon, right? So we're on average doing a major launch of a new product once every quarter to every 6 months. That's like a big 6-figure launch that we're looking to do. And then we have more what I'll call either maintenance or promotion or segmented offers that we do. Generally every month we're letting somebody know about something. Now, if you're on our general email list, you might find that you get one email a month, just our newsletter. And then suddenly you get 12 emails from us because you made it into a segment during a promo, then you might not hear from us again. So we try not to have too much fatigue. We try to make it so that on average, somebody will get promoted to once every 3 to 6 months if they're on our email list. But we're doing promotions generally every month, or we're doing some kind of revenue generating event every month.
Nice. I have told people about that's almost exact same line about if you're not sending email promotions, you're basically not making most of the money that you're supposed to get in this business. So many times it's like, guys, you've got to email. It's like one of the top things we do with all of our clients who are less advanced is just get them started sending email promotions. And
yeah, it really is vital. And I know it might seem odd, right? I take every email I send out seriously because my name's on it, right? I'm sending it to your inbox. And if it sucks, you're going to call me out on it or unsubscribe. So yeah, sometimes I don't even want to hit send on it, or, I get doubts about it, but it works and you have to do it. I know you said some less advanced people talking about it. I mean, I would say that this is what I do in my coaching that I do in talking about business is that you should spend 10% to 20% of your time on business development, even if you don't want to. And so that's in the good days and the bad days, 10 to 20% of your time, which if you do the math, somewhere between 4 and 8 hours a week. And so 4 to 8 hours a week doing some kind of revenue generating activity or brand building activity you should be doing. And that means you should be sending out at least one email a week. And you can find time if you look at it from that allocation of your hours.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're sending out those promotions, how often are you including any webinars with that? And how often is it just email?
Yeah. So through your help or your team's help, we have, I'm going to just tell you my storied history with webinars because it might be a fun one. It might be a learning experience and people might understand the full cycle of it. So in 2015, I went to be a digital nomad. And I went all in on it. I was in Hawaii in a yurt. I was in Tahiti. I was in New Zealand in a camper van. I was full out digital nomad, whatever. And then trying to sell courses as I was doing it. So I hired a webinar coach because I was like, everybody's talking about webinars. This is 2015. It was probably the peak of webinars, really, or the alleged peak. Although I think right now is still the peak, mind you. But I hired a coach, paid like 10 grand to do it. And they helped me develop a webinar. And then I was like, okay, well, now I have to do webinar on a crappy Airbnb connection and I have to sort of plan for it. And they're like, you can't evergreen this until you do it 10 times, you get better at it. So I did it a few times. I had this script that I traveled with in my backpack. I had the whole script of here's the buying words and you need to hit at this point. They're highlighted on this slide, say this. And you could hear it crinkling in the background and you could hear people probably cringing on the other side of it because I was trying so hard and I was not doing very well at all. I put out a Facebook ad, hey, I'm doing a webinar. And then people would be like, you're a scam snake oil salesman. So I basically gave up on webinars as a sales mechanism for a long time and only did it maybe once a year from 2016 till 2019. But just came back where I was like, there's no better way to let people know that you have something to offer them than to have an hour to explain to them what you can do to the point where they might want to continue to work with you. An email is easy to ignore, but if you can get somebody's hour of their time, or if you can get a certain amount of their time and they can hear you and see you and see the passion that goes into what you do, it's more likely that they're going to have an affinity to you. And that's what happens with a sales call. If you're selling services, that's what happens in the world, is that the more time you get, generally speaking, if you're not an asshole, pardon my language. And sometimes if you are an asshole, it depends on who you're trying to attract. Somebody will like you more.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, right? And so webinars work very well. So to answer your question, even after that long tangent, we do about one webinar every month or two. And through working with your team, we're going to try to do at least once a month, maybe even more frequent than that, to our new leads. So that's the long answer.
Yeah, I love webinars so much. I just think they're part of the issue is people are a bit scared of doing it because they're scared of public speaking. It's supposed to be the number one fear and all of this, and people aren't necessarily good at it. And I get all of that, but they're just so powerful. The ability to have people come and spend an hour with you where you teach them something useful that brings them value, that helps them out, that then leads into them wanting to buy your main course that you've got on offer. If you line it all up right, it's incredible. Like this, I've never seen anything else that's quite like it in terms of lining up all of these things. You get people to like you more, you build up more authority, you actually get to help people, even if they don't buy with something useful. You make a load of sales out of it. It's like builds up, you know, people's affinity to your brand. It's like all of these things lined up together. And I don't think it's the easiest tactic. Like we start most people on just start sending some email promotions, but it's one of the ones that's just so powerful once you can kind of build it into the system.
I'll elaborate on that a little bit, is that I think one of the problems, or the mental block that I had, and this might help some people, is that I'm a teacher. I've been teaching in a classroom for a long time, and I do public speaking. John read all that off in my intro. That's easy for me. It's the selling at the end and transitioning to that was always the hard part, just feeling a little bit slimy and dirty. And then also, once you read the perfect webinar script or you read something, it really becomes this, it's almost on the verge of, you just don't want to be a salesperson, or you think that it's pushy, right? So if that concerns you, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do webinars. It just means teach with an agenda, of course, not just blindly, but teach somebody something and just do that a bunch and get comfortable with that. And then slowly add just a single call to action. Like, hey, I'm doing a workshop where I'm going to teach more of this at a guaranteed time. Let me know if you're interested. And then all they have to do is just, the CTA is text on the webinar. Like you don't need to go. I think the biggest mistake people often make is that they start by trying to be in their day one, Russell Brunson's day. I mean, the guy has been doing this for a long time, and he did it a long time and then lost his entire business and then built himself back up again, right? And this is like a 20-year career. Yeah, your day one won't be his day 20, it won't be John's day, whatever day you're on. It won't be my day, whatever I'm on, right? So I would say just teach and get that part down and get people to like you. And then once they like you, the close is really not that bad. The close is just a natural next step, right? It doesn't have to be shady at all. It's just telling them what the next step is with this information. And after a while, you start to think, okay, well, this isn't slimy at all. And in fact, I'm doing them a disservice if I don't tell them what to do next. Basically, I just wasted an hour of their time by educating them something without giving them what's next. Because that's why they signed up and tuned into you in the first place, right? So add the elements at that order, and I think you'll be better off. Now, trust me, John's probably going to tell you something completely different. He's probably going to say, just get good at it and just suck it up and just do it. But I think that if you're uncomfortable, that's how I became comfortable with it. It's really just teaching with a better next step defined.
Yeah, it's what I start everybody with. I don't say to anybody when they're doing their first webinar, let's do an amazing, perfect, Russell Brunson system is called the perfect webinar. I don't say, let's start with the perfect webinar, because it's too hard. There's too much in there. What we tell everybody to start with is basically what you said, is just teach something. And at the end, say, I've got a great course that I'm selling, you know, that's available around this. If you want to hear more about it, stay on the call and I'll explain. So that then the only people who stay on the call are the ones who wanted to hear about it. And if they stay on, you explain about it and you go through and you explain how it works. And some of those people will buy. And there you go, you've got started. And then you can add layers in from there. It's dangerous, I think, trying to go straight to level 10, straight to the advanced version, because you get depressed and it didn't work. The thing I see people try and do, and I find it fascinating, is they want to do Facebook ads to a webinar before they've done a webinar for their email list. And I'm like, but you're not ready for that. That's hard. Do a webinar to your email list, and some of those people will buy. They're warm, they like you, they'll just come on and buy from you. The Facebook ads, if you spend money on it and then people buy, but it's less people buy, you make less than you spent on it, you feel bad about it. If you send a webinar email to your email list and nobody buys, okay, you lost some time, but it doesn't matter that much. It's okay, you know, that was a bit of practice. So I'd totally say, yes, start with, like you say, start with teaching something that's relevant to what you're going to be selling. Be nice and friendly about it. Don't be weird, but do it.
Yep. And in the close doesn't have, you can just close as taking a next step. You don't have to put a gun to somebody's head and say, buy now. It really is just like, hey, do you want to keep this going? You want to keep this conversation going? And think about it. You're basically saying, instead of in any buying scenario, you talk to 100 people, maybe 10 are likely to buy. That's generous.
Hmm.
So you're just using that scenario of those 100 people to have the 10 people raise their hand to say, I'm thinking about the next steps. And so that's ultimately the purpose. Of course, they can buy something, especially if you have a product that's easy to sell and whip out the credit card. And I've bought on webinars many times, right? But until you don't have to get to that point right away, you can get to the point where you're just carving off efficiently the 10 people that you really want to talk to.
Yeah, I really don't like pressure closing tactics that people use on webinars or in person. Always has bothered me. My close at the end of, if I have a sales call with somebody, I talk them through, help them out, explain how things can work, ask if they want to hear about our program. And if they do, I talk them through it. And then at the end, I say, what do you think? That's it. If they weren't interested by the time they get there, then what you say at the end doesn't matter. Russell Brunson he teaches to use, I think, 9 to 15 closes at the end of the webinar, different clever psychological closes. And I'm like, they work, sure, but they only work if you do them. And if you don't do webinars because you don't like that stuff, well, then nothing happens, right? I'm on board. You don't have to do any of that stuff to start with. Find the bits that work for you.
Yeah, you made me think of a story, which is probably totally out of left field, but this guy, Trey Ratcliffe, he's this painter or a digital photographer that I love, and stuck in customs.com. And he was telling the story about how he tried to sell an art print for $1 million. And he said, this is going to be $1 million. It was like a blow up of one of this amazing picture that he took in China. And his close was, so what do you think about that? And he sold it. He sold the $1 million painting just by saying, so what do you think about that? I mean, that's what you just said. I think that can be a close right there.
Yeah, totally. All right, great. So what do you do? One of the things that we are fascinated by is the link between the content, the useful content, and the promotion. What do you do when you're putting together a promotion to make sure that somebody's warmed up through the content in advance? You mentioned someone might just get an email a month. Is that how they're getting warmed up? Do you connect it in the promotion as their content in there? Obviously the webinars content. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah. So when we're doing a launch, or let's say something that is a 6-figure generating event, it's a 4 to 6 weeks build up to the point where we even open up the cart. And we've done a lot of experiments to see what cadence works best, but it's usually once a week on Thursdays or Tuesdays and Thursdays where you warm them up. We have a whole set of steps in our toolbox, anything from a survey that works out really well for us at the front end. Like, hey, take the survey. And then we use the words in the survey and frustrations to sort of build out our marketing messages. We might do a live thing to talk about the topic. We might do a blog post. We've done really well with blog posts. Free downloads are a great one. Hey, download this thing and get this going. A video explaining that download. So it's usually content and it's give, right? It's just giving them a bunch of cool stuff around the topic at the beginning to sort of get their heads in the game and to feel like they're getting something of value out of it. So then the law of reciprocation takes in, and they might say, okay, well, I want to reciprocate for this value I've already received. I'll join the program, or I'll join the thing to get more of it. And so generally it's a 4 to 6 week process, and it involves multiple touch points, all via email, of course, to get them to identify that this stuff is important. And then we usually invite them to a live event or a webinar, if you will. Let them know, hey, here's the big training. And I don't know about you, but every time you watch a webinar, a lot of times you're getting the methodology or the secret sauce that you could implement on your own. You don't really need to buy the product. However, when you buy the product, you get the support, you get the knowledge, you get the context, you get the access that goes along with it. And so that's just what we let them know. Like, hey, you can just take this thing and go do it yourself. With this checklist for Google Analytics 4 migration, you could migrate to Google Analytics 4. You could even sell it to a client. And we have people who have done that. They've actually made money selling something to a client that they got for free on one of our emails. But if you want to go all in though, and you want to truly understand this, then you need somebody who understands it like myself, and I'll help you get there. So that's often how we do it, is we give a ton of value, and then we have a live event where we train. And then at the end we say, if you want to keep this going, if you like this vibe, then join our program or join our insiders.
I love that. That's beautiful. One of the things that I think about marketing is that your marketing should help more people than your courses do. like way more. So someone can just go through your marketing, learn a bunch of, this is the overall under the system, this is how it works, and then go apply it and just be like, you've done good without ever having them ever bought anything from you. But like you say, if they then want to take it to the next level, they're like, right, I need more support, or I need more detail, or I need my questions answered, or whatever. It's like, great. That's why we have a paid program. You can come join that as well. If you don't want it, fine. If you do want it, great. You know, it makes the whole thing flow really nicely together, I think, particularly for course creators, because most course creators are first and foremost an expert in a topic. They're a teacher. They're someone who wants to help people. That's why so many course creators have really good traffic sources. You know, they've taught a lot on YouTube and they've got lots of a big audience there, or they've shared loads of content via their blog and they've got a lot of people who come to their site to read the free stuff. Okay, can you take that a little further and connect that into the courses so it's a seamless experience rather than it being free stuff, courses? How do you make the two of those connect together? And I think the email, the webinars, the Facebook Lives, all of that done in the right way lines all of that stuff up together. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's a good position to be in, is to teach for free before you try to monetize it, whether it's through a blog or YouTube. I came up in the blogging days. I'm old school, but my blog, it was basically courses were a way to fund and to monetize the blog, the traffic that was coming in. That's sort of why I gravitated towards courses. Plus I have a teaching background, but that's why I ended up choosing that for sure.
Nice. Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you sharing all this with everybody today. If people want to check out your courses, where should they go? What's a good place to start?
Yeah, go to datadrivenyou.com. And that should be how it sounds. You know, I had mentioned that there's some freebies on apps. If you want to get into the platform for free, that's the way to do it. There's one called Starting from Zero, about starting a freelance business and how I did it in 2020 if I had to start fresh, even after COVID. There's one called the Facebook Ads on a Budget, which if you want to run Facebook ads, but you don't have a ton of money, that would be a good course. We have one about LinkedIn outreach. We have one about Google Ads. We have a ton of stuff on AppSumo. And then my ultimate goal would be that if you find value in those and you want to just have access to me and my team and ongoing education, our Insiders program has a ton of really cool benefits. You can ask me a question and I'll give you a video response within a few days. You can get support. We have bi-weekly support calls where you can ask any question you want to. And I have a panel of experts who will answer them. We have a panel of experts who will answer any technical data-driven marketing question you have. All those things come with it. Plus every week a new resource gets released and we have all of our courses in there. So the ultimate way to get involved is to become part of our Insiders, or just sign up for our email list and you'll get invited to a webinar that shows you how our Insiders works.
You know that if you click on the links, you sign up for that, you're going to get your 8 to 12 email promotions. I love it. Nice.
There you go. Yeah.
So
I was just going to say, on the marketing that you were talking about, I get compliments all the time. You're the only marketer whose email list I stayed on and I didn't unsubscribe because I think you add value. You have the Midwestern humbleness and humility. I genuinely want to help people. That's the only reason why I do this. And that's what keeps me going, is to help, one, increase the talent pool, and then two, have the breakthroughs that I had through using marketing and data as my vehicle to have so many life breakthroughs. And so, yeah, I'm there. That's what I want to do, is help people with that mission. And that's everything we do is around there. So, you know, we do have to make money and we do have to do promotions, and John's team helps us make money. But ultimately, we come from a position of helping you find that breakthrough. And that's why we have so many programs and why we are so invested in doing this.
Nice. That's beautiful, man. So if you have found this interview useful, please give us a review wherever you listen to it, and come join the Advanced Online Course Creators group on Facebook. You get early access to future interviews. You get support with growing your online course sales for free inside of that group. So hopefully we'll see you there. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.